Hello friends, welcome to Communication Skills for Everyone. In this channel you are going to learn English language skills, personal development, vocabulary and all-round development. Hello friends, today let's learn key concepts in cultural studies. Key concepts in cultural studies. What are the key concepts? So first one, representation. Cultural studies emphasize focus on representation, which refers to how the world is socially constructed and represented to us by ourselves in a meaningful ways. So the major stress of cultural studies is on the study of culture as the signifying practice of representation. So for this we need to explore the different meanings generated by text and the modes by which each meaning is produced in different contexts. Moreover, representations of culture and their meanings have material aspect. These are embedded in sounds, inscriptions, objects, images, books, magazines and programs on television. All this is produced, enacted, used and understood in specific social contexts. So a wide range of different representations of groups or individuals can exist in text or cultures. The concept of representation has an important place in the study of culture. So representation is that which connects meaning and language to culture. It is an important element of process through which meaning is produced and exchanged between members of a culture. It involves use of language, signs and images which stand for or represent things. Basically, representation is the creation of the meanings of the concepts created in our minds through language. So the second one, materialism. So cultural studies is mostly concerned with modern industrialized economies as well as with the media cultures which are organized on capitalist lines. In this, the representations are produced by profit-motivated corporations. It is in this context that cultural studies have developed a form of cultural materialism concerned with understanding how and why specific meanings are inscribed at the time of production. Therefore, we can say that keeping the focus on signifying practices, cultural studies also try to connect this to political economy. So cultural studies as a discipline is concerned with power and the distribution of economic and social resources. As a result, cultural studies is concerned with the one who owns as well as controls cultural production, distribution mechanism used for cultural products, and the consequences of the pattern of ownership and control of the outlines of the cultural landscape. The next key concept we can say non-productionism. A central characteristic of cultural studies is its non-productionism. So in this, each culture is viewed as having its own particular meanings, rules and practices which cannot be reduced to or explained only in terms of some other category or level of social formation. Cultural studies has specifically fought against economic reductionism, which attempts to explain meanings of cultural text with references to its place in the production process. So the processes of political economy do not determine meanings of the text in cultural studies. The next one, articulation. So articulation links cultural or social phenomena. Right, the concept of articulation has been deployed by cultural studies for theorizing the relationships among various components of a social formation. It points towards the formation of temporary unity among elements which do not necessarily have to go together. Articulation refers to expressing or representing as well as putting together. So in this way, representations of gender can be put together with representations of race or nations, so that we can refer to nations as being female. Articulation is here it is the kind of framework of connections which can create a unity of two or more different elements under certain conditions. This takes place in context specific and contingent ways which cannot always be predicted. Articulation is, it's deployed for discussing the relation between culture and political economy. So hence we say that the culture is articulated with the movements of production, but not determined in any necessary way by the movement, or vice versa. The next one is power. Power is the capacity of imposing one's will on others. So it is common argument that media has too much power. There is sterling agreement among cultural studies writers about the centrality of the concept of power. So for them, power is seen as pervading at every level of social relationships. Power is a cohesive force subordinating one group of people to another and the glue holding the social groups together. But it is not just these, it is also seen in terms of the processes generating and enabling any form of social action, relationship, or order. So, in this sense, power is constraining as well as enabling. Cultural studies is specifically concerned with subordinated groups. Here, mainly class and then race, gender, age groups, nations, so on and so forth. For example, minorities of all kinds generally presume that their way of life and views are treated by media in a positively hostile manner. Popular culture. So, subordination takes place due to cohesion as well as consent. Cultural studies understands popular culture as the ground on which this consent is obtained or lost. So, in order to understand interplay of power and consent, two concepts of ideology and hegemony are often deployed in the earlier texts of cultural studies. Ideology commonly refers to maps of meanings which are presented as universal truths. Ideology is a historically specific meaning obscuring and maintaining power. So, for instance, gender representations in advertising depicting women as housewives reduces them to such categories. Such portrayal denies them their rightful position as human beings and citizens of society. This process of making, maintaining, reproducing ascendant meanings and practices is referred as hegemony. It refers to a situation where powerful groups exercise social authority and leadership over subordinate groups by gaining consent. The next one, you can see, yes, text and readers. Production. Here, production of constant refers to popular identification to cultural meanings by signifying practices. Text generally describe a range of cultural objects like books, televisions, CDs, films, so on and so forth. It also includes generating meanings by sounds, images, objects, and other activities. So, images, sounds, practices, and objects are systems of sign and signify in the same way as language. So, they all can be commonly referred to as text. All sort of texts, including television and films, are said to be read. In broader sense, it refers to understanding the audience. And the next one, subjectivity and identity. So here, identity is the sense of self and the process of definition of that sense. It is commonly argued that media plays a significant role in this process. One of the processes by which we are formed as persons is marked by the moment of consumption. So if we move back during the 1990s, main areas of concern in cultural studies were what it is to be a person, the subjectivity, how we describe ourselves, to each other. That is identity. Therefore, we can say that cultural studies looks into how we come to be the kind of people we are, how we are produced as subjects, and how we identify with descriptions of ourselves as male or female, black or white, so on and so forth. Anti-essentialism is an argument which states that identities are not things that exist. They do not have essential or universal qualities. In fact, they are discursive construction, products of discourses, or regulated ways of speaking through the world. So, identities are made rather than found through representation, especially language. For instance, in relation to media, an individual may define himself or herself as a heavy metal fan or a fan of rock music. So, these are key concepts in cultural studies: representation, materialism, non-reductionism, articulation, power, popular culture, text and readers, and the last one, subjectivity and identity. Thank you for watching. Subscribe Communication Skills for more academic and educational videos.